There is a building in the village of Henicheska on a thin strip of land called the Arabat Spit in Russian-occupied Kherson Oblast that the Kremlin considered safe, not invulnerable, not secret to every intelligence service in the world, but safe, because the FSB said it was safe, because the FSB had put its people there. Because the FSB had positioned a Pantsir S-1 air defense system outside to protect it, because the FSB's own security apparatus had blessed the location. And because the FSB is Russia's most powerful domestic intelligence and security service, the direct successor to the KGB, the organization that has spent 30 years making itself the unchallengeable guardian of Russian state security, the institution whose job is to know everything about every threat before the threat arrives. On May 21, 2026, Ukraine's SBU Special Operations Center Alpha sent drones to that building. 9 buildings actually. Because the FSB headquarters on the Arabat Spit consisted of 9 separate structures, and Ukraine targeted every single one, the drones struck the roofs, they flew through windows, they found the people inside. When it was over, Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky posted a video of the burning complex and said, "Thanks to this single operation, Russian losses amount to about 100 occupiers killed and wounded, 100 in one operation." In a location the FSB had selected specifically because it believed it was beyond Ukraine's reach, and this was not even the only FSB facility Ukraine destroyed this month. Today we break down the full picture of what Ukraine has done to Russia's most secretive intelligence apparatus in a 3-week campaign that sent shockwaves. Through the Kremlin's security structure, the Arabat Spit headquarters with its 9 buildings and 100 casualties. The Donetsk Mobile Action Directorate command post destroyed with FP-2 drones carrying 100-kilogram warheads. The FSB's 16th Center for Signals Intelligence in Krasnodar Krai struck overnight on May 28 to 29. What each of these units actually did, why destroying them matters far beyond the casualty count. What the Syzran oil refinery shut down 800 kilometers inside Russia tells you about the reach Ukraine now has, what the new Ruta missile means for Putin's ability to feel safe anywhere. And why, as one analyst put it, Putin's Russia is no longer safe, and for the first time in this war, that fear may be Ukraine's greatest weapon. Let us start with the Arabat Spit, because the geography matters as much as the operation. The Arabat Spit is a narrow strip of land approximately 110 kilometers long and between 270 meters and 8 kilometers wide, running along the eastern edge of the Crimean Peninsula and separating the Azov Sea from the Sivash Lagoon. It is one of the most strategically peculiar locations in occupied Ukraine. It is simultaneously very close to the front line in terms of linear distance and very difficult to approach from Ukrainian-controlled territory because of the water on both sides. Russia felt confident about the Arabat Spit, the IISS's analysis of Russia's defensive posture in occupied southern Ukraine consistently identified the Arabat Spit as a key rear area security zone. Russian forces established a large military base there. The headquarters of the Diener Group of Forces was deployed at the site. Training grounds were set up, and the FSB, which runs its own operations in occupied territories entirely separate from the regular military command structure, established its own headquarters in the village of Henicheska, not a small outpost, a 9-building complex with a Pantsir S-1 air defense system on site. The FSB does not put a Pantsir S-1 at a location it considers low value. A Pantsir S-1 is worth up to $20 million. It is a combined anti-aircraft artillery and surface-to-air missile system specifically designed to intercept drones and cruise missiles at short range. The FSB positioned one specifically to protect this headquarters from Ukrainian drone attack, and the Alpha unit sent drones that hit 9 buildings simultaneously. The Pantsir S-1 was also destroyed by a drone attack it was specifically positioned to stop. NASA's firm's satellite monitoring service recorded the large fire at coordinates 46.05856, 34.84056 at 2:58 in the morning on May 17. Local residents reported 6 strike drones causing the fire. 1 week later, on May 21, Zelensky confirmed the operation and released the video. The SBU Special Operations Center Alpha had not only destroyed the facility, It had done it, kept quiet for 4 days, verified the results, compiled the footage, and then delivered the announcement as a carefully prepared statement about what Russian security forces should expect. Now let us understand who was in those 9 buildings, because the FSB headquarters on the Arabat Spit was not a bureaucratic office. It was the operational command of the FSB's presence in occupied southern Ukraine. The FSB in occupied territories operates in a fundamentally different way from the regular Russian military. The military's job is to hold ground, advance, and fight the Ukrainian armed forces. The FSB's job is everything else: control the population, find the collaborators, eliminate the partisans, build agent networks that can penetrate Ukrainian civilian society, intercept communications that give away partisan activity. Identify and physically eliminate Ukrainian officials, journalists, civic leaders, and anyone the occupation administration needs removed. Coordinate the Chechen units and other irregular formations that Russia uses for the most brutal aspects of occupation enforcement. The FSB officers who died on the Arabat Spit were the people responsible for all of those functions across the occupied Kherson sector. The loss of a headquarters for those operations is not just a casualty count. It is a disruption to the entire intelligence and covert operations architecture that Russia has built in occupied southern Ukraine. It destroys the filing systems, the communication records, the agent databases, the surveillance logs. It kills the officers who ran those networks. It creates a period of chaos during which Ukrainian partisan activity in the occupied territories becomes harder for Russia to detect and suppress. And it tells every local person in occupied southern Ukraine who may be quietly cooperating with Ukrainian intelligence that the FSB's ability to find them just got significantly degraded. But the Arabat Spit was not the beginning of this campaign. Let us go back to April 22, 2026, because that strike set the pattern. That May has amplified. At 8:01 in the morning on April 22nd, Ukraine's unmanned systems forces launched 8 high-precision strikes on a building in Russian-occupied Donetsk. The building was a command post of the FSB's Mobile Action Directorate, known by its Russian acronym MUMD. The strikes used FP-2 drones manufactured by Ukrainian defense company Firepoint. Each FP-2 carries between 60 and 100 kilograms of explosive warhead. These are not small FPV drones designed to kill a single soldier. These are medium-range precision weapons designed to destroy reinforced structures. Unmanned Systems Forces Commander Robert Magyar Bravdy published thermal targeting footage showing the moment the drones locked onto the building. He confirmed 12 FSB officers killed and 15 wounded, 27 casualties from a single strike package of 8 drones. He also explained in precise language that tells you exactly why this target mattered, what the UMD actually does. He said the FSB's Mobile Action Directorate operates as a special counterintelligence unit in occupied territories. He said it performs counterintelligence tasks, sabotage, military special operations, the creation of agent networks, the search and detention of disloyal citizens, the physical elimination of opponents, the coordination of pro-Russian militants. Within Ukrainian territory, he added, the unit is responsible for recruitment, managing agent networks, and carrying out terrorist acts, sabotage, and arson. Read that list slowly: physical elimination of opponents. That means murder, terrorist acts, sabotage, and arson. That means the people planning car bombings, explosions in Ukrainian-controlled cities, and fires set at military recruitment centers. The officers that Ukrainian drones killed on April 22nd were not paper pushers. They were the people running Russia's covert war inside Ukraine, the bomb makers, the network controllers, the handlers who manage Russian citizens recruited by the FSB to carry out attacks on Ukrainian soil. The operation was developed by the Deep Strike Center of the Unmanned Systems Forces in coordination with the Azov First Corps of the National Guard. It was executed by the unit called Taki, which means birds in Ukrainian, using middle strike systems. The Deep Strike Center, which Ukraine formalized as a new organizational unit in 2026, is specifically designed to coordinate attacks on high-priority targets beyond the immediate front line, not tactical targets, not soldiers in a trench, organizational nerve centers, command infrastructure. The kind of targets that, when destroyed, degrade Russia's ability to function in ways that persist long after the smoke clears. And then, 1 week after the Arabat spit, came the deepest strike of this entire campaign. Overnight on May 28 to 29, 2026, Ukraine's SBU Alpha unit struck again. This time, the target was not in occupied Ukraine. This time, the target was inside Russia itself. In the Temryuk district of Krasnodar Krai, the FSB's 16th Center, the unit that specializes in signals intelligence, Ukrainska Pravda published the SBU statement in full. It said, "This command post was used by the enemy to guide missiles and drones across Ukrainian territory and intercept signals from foreign satellites." Intercept signals from foreign satellites. That phrase is the most significant detail in the statement, and it has received almost no attention in Western coverage. The FSB's 16th Center was not just guiding Russian Shah drones toward Ukrainian cities, it was intercepting communications from foreign military satellites that Ukraine depends on, satellite communications from allies, targeting data from allied surveillance platforms. Intelligence passed between Ukraine and its partners through space-based relay systems, all of it flowing through an FSB facility in Krasnodar Krai, and now key facilities at that center have been disabled by Ukrainian strike drones, the same Alpha unit that hit the Arabat Spit 9 buildings on May 17th, the same organizational family that destroyed the UMD command post in Donetsk on April 22nd. 3 separate FSB facilities, 3 separate functions: occupied territory control, covert operations and agent networks, signals intelligence and satellite interception, all targeted, all hit, in a 37-day campaign from April 22nd to May 29th that has degraded the FSB's operational architecture across 3 distinct intelligence functions simultaneously. Now let us connect this FSB campaign to the broader pattern of what Ukraine is doing to Russia's rear, because the FSB strikes did not happen in isolation. They happened alongside the deepest oil infrastructure campaign Ukraine has ever run. On the same night as Zelensky confirmed the Arabat Spit strike, May 21st, he also confirmed that Ukrainian long-range drones had hit the Syzran oil refinery in the Samara Oblast. More than 800 kilometers from the Ukrainian border. Zelensky called it yet another long-range sanction against the Russian oil refining industry. He said Ukraine would continue along this path. By May 26th, Ukraine's general staff confirmed the Syzran refinery had shut down operations completely. Shut down, not reduced. Capacity, not damaged and continuing at lower efficiency. Shut down. The Syzran oil refinery belongs to Rosneft. It has a capacity of 8.9 million tons of oil per year. It processes crude from western Siberia and Samara Oblast. It produces fuel, aviation kerosene, and bitumen. Samara Oblast Governor Fedorishev confirmed 2 people were killed in the attack, and the Kyiv Independent confirmed the facility had ceased operations 800 kilometers from Ukraine's border. Shut down by a Ukrainian drone. A single strike on a Siberian oil terminal in April, documented by the Dispatch, had already disrupted exports worth $1.2 billion in a single week. Central Russia's oil refineries are now operating under a threat that Russian air defense cannot consistently defeat. Reuters, citing industry sources, reported that nearly all major oil refineries in central Russia had been forced to either shut down or cut fuel production after a series of recent Ukrainian drone strikes. Nearly all. That is not a harassment campaign. That is a systematic campaign against the infrastructure that finances Russia's war machine. Russia sells oil to fund its military. Ukraine is destroying the refineries that process the oil. Here is the picture of the overall scale of what Ukraine's drone campaign has achieved against Russian energy infrastructure in 2026, because it needs to be seen as a whole rather than as isolated incidents. Ryazan oil refinery reported halted operations after drone strikes. Moscow oil refinery halted operations after drone strikes. Syzran oil refinery shut down May 26 following May 21 attack. Krasnodar Krai's Afipsky refinery struck and damaged. A Siberian oil terminal in April disrupted exports worth $1.2 billion in 1 week. 3 crude oil storage tanks in Krasnodar Krai set on fire over 5,000 square meters by the same SBU Alpha strike that hit the FSB 16th Center. The Yaroslav L3 pumping station, part of the Baltic pipeline system BPS-1, supplying crude oil to the Slavneftyanos refinery and export terminals at Primorsk, struck in the same operation. A gas terminal at the port of Temryuk set on fire, and a Siberian oil terminal in April. This is not a list of symbolic targets. This is a systematic assault on the pipeline, refining, and export infrastructure that converts Russia's natural resources into the cash that pays for the war, and Ukraine is doing it from 800 kilometers inside Russia, with drones it built itself. Now let us talk about the Ukraine Ruta missile and what it means for everything. Putin thought was safe. Ukraine has developed a new long-range strike missile called the Ruta. It has a reported range of approximately 2,000 kilometers from Ukrainian territory. A 2,000-kilometer range puts the following within reach: all of Moscow, all of St. Petersburg, the Urals, the Caspian Sea region, parts of western Siberia, all Russian military infrastructure within a 2,000-kilometer radius of Ukraine's borders. Ukraine Today's analysis on May 21 said the Ruta's 2,000-kilometer reach puts Moscow, Crimea, command sites, refineries, logistics nodes, and Russian security structures under a level of pressure the Kremlin did not prepare to face. The Kremlin built its entire strategic calculus around one assumption that is now being tested. Russia is big, Russia is deep, Ukraine cannot reach the things that matter. The war will be won in the mud of Donetsk, not in the logistics corridors of Samara Oblast. The FSB headquarters in Krasnodar Krai is safe. The refineries 800 kilometers away are safe. The Signals Intelligence Center is safe. The oil pipelines are safe. None of it is safe anymore. Let us also address what the FSB's own response to this campaign tells you about its internal assessment. Russia's FSB, on May 3, announced it had killed a man recruited by Ukraine's GUR military intelligence unit who was planning to blow up military buildings and energy sites in Russia. The FSB published a video of the operation, armed agents surrounding a concrete bunker in the Leningrad region, close to St. Petersburg. The man running into the bunker, the firefight, his body inside. The FSB releasing the video publicly was a signal to its own population. We are still protecting you. We are still catching the agents. We are still functioning. But the timing of that announcement and the public nature of the video release tells a different story when you read it in context. Russia's FSB was publicly advertising a single caught agent in the Leningrad region on May 3rd. 9 days before Ukraine destroyed the FSB's Arabat Spit headquarters, killing 100, 18 days before Ukraine struck the FSB's 16th Center for Signals Intelligence in Krasnodar Krai, the analysis from Ukraine's Disruptive Operations 2025 research documented that the FSB Second Service remains ineffective at stopping both simple and specialized partisan operations, ineffective at stopping simple operations. And now Ukraine is not running simple operations. Ukraine is running coordinated, intelligence-driven, multi-wave strikes against the FSB's own command infrastructure. The organization tasked with stopping Ukraine's intelligence operations inside Russia and occupied Ukraine has now had 3 of its facilities destroyed in 37 days, its counterintelligence headquarters in occupied Kherson, its Special Operations and Covert Action Command Post in occupied Donetsk, its Signals Intelligence Center in Krasnodar Krai, Russia itself. Here is the strategic consequence that goes beyond the casualty count and the facility destruction. The FSB's operations in occupied Ukraine depend on 3 things: physical presence, communication, infrastructure, the fear of local populations that the FSB is everywhere and knows everything. Ukraine's campaign is systematically degrading all 3. Physical presence reduced by 100 casualties at the Arabat Spit headquarters. Communication infrastructure damaged by the strike on the 16th Center for Signals Intelligence, and the psychological infrastructure of fear degraded by something even more important than the casualty count. The FSB chose those locations because it believed they were safe. The Arabat Spit was defended by a Pantsir S-1. The UMD command post in Donetsk was a counterintelligence facility in the heart of Russian-occupied territory. The 16th Center in Krasnodar Krai was inside Russia itself. All 3 were hit. For a security service whose entire operational authority rests on the belief that it can protect its own people and its own infrastructure, losing 3 facilities in 37 days, including one inside Russia proper, is not just a military setback, it is an institutional crisis. The people the FSB is supposed to recruit, run, and control in occupied territories need to believe the FSB can protect them if they are caught. When the FSB zone headquarters burns in front of a NASA satellite and a Zelensky video, that belief becomes harder to sustain. Here is the final picture as of May 29, 2026. On May 17, Ukraine's SBU Alpha unit destroyed the 9-building FSB headquarters on the Arabat spit in occupied Kherson Oblast. 100 casualties, Pantsir S-1 air defense system destroyed, facility burned. On April 22, Ukraine's unmanned systems forces destroyed the FSB Mobile Action Directorate command post in occupied Donetsk, 12 killed, 15 wounded. The unit responsible for physical elimination of opponents, terrorist acts, sabotage, and arson in Ukraine destroyed. On May 28 to 29, Ukraine's SBU Alpha unit struck the FSB's 16th Center for Signals Intelligence in Krasnodar Krai, Russia, key facilities disabled. The unit that guided Russian missiles and drones across Ukrainian territory and intercepted signals from foreign satellites hit. On May 21, Ukraine struck the Syzran oil refinery, 800 kilometers inside Russia. The refinery shut down by May 26. Nearly all major oil refineries in central Russia halted or cut production. From the cumulative drone campaign, Zelensky said Russia must realize it needs to end the war. He said Ukraine's medium and long-range sanctions will continue. He said this is yet another of our long-range sanctions against the Russian oil refining industry. Ukraine's new Ruta missile with its reported 2,000-kilometer range puts all of these targets and more into permanent range, the darkening cloud of anxiety that the IISS described over Russia in May 2026 has a very specific source. It is the realization, spreading through every Russian who follows the news, that the things Putin told them were safe are no longer safe. The FSB that was supposed to make occupied Ukraine controllable is having its headquarters destroyed. The refineries that were supposed to be unreachable are shutting down. The Signals Intelligence Center that was intercepting foreign satellites is now a ruin in Krasnodar Krai, and a Ukrainian drone can now fly 800 kilometers into Russia, hit a Rosneft refinery, and shut it down. Putin built this war on the assumption that Russia could outlast Ukraine, absorb losses, and wait for Western fatigue. He built it on the assumption that Russia's depth was its protection, that distance was its shield, and right now 3 FSB facilities are on fire, one Rosneft refinery is shut down, and Ukrainian engineers are testing a missile that can reach the other side of the Ural Mountains. The assumption of depth no longer holds, and the Kremlin knows it.